Hello, this is Brian Whitten and E.T. Art. How are you today? Before I get started, if you are 12 or younger, could you go and get your parents or guardians please to have them watch this video before you watch it yourself. Thank you. For everybody else, I wanted to come back today to discuss a few things. Before I get started, this is actually the screensaver off my laptop here, and this is the picture that I showed you a couple of weeks ago for the first time. Certainly a couple of weeks ago on my home page on my Facebook account, and said that the profile here of a Satanist whose cloak is going up here, but inside his cloak it shows his departure, spiralling out of the atmosphere, spiralling out of the star system, to be honest. And I discussed that in my last video. It's funny because that's my desktop. I didn't make it my desktop, somebody else did. If it's not you guys on the planet, it was somebody else who's not on the planet. I thought I'd start with that today. I wanted to go over a few things before we got to the content which is contained within the upload name. Okay, so I will go over one or two things from last week just to have a clear understanding of what that situation is. Now, the first thing I'd like to go over today is the discussion we had about the lifting of landmass in this way here. I probably had this drawn here when in reality it could already be in place and be out to sea. You wouldn't know this was the case, so this could be a river here. How we've got one chunk of land here, our river goes from the Darling River all the way down to South Australia. So what I'm saying is, if this is a really huge piece of land, and the amount of water that's from the pressure of the ocean that's holding it aloft only needs to be less than a foot high here, 6 inches. It would do exactly the same thing that if it was 60 feet. You're not going to feel it. It's like being on a boat on a calm ocean, with a boat being 700 kilometres long and 300 kilometres wide. You are not going to feel the movement of this landmass here. You're not going to be buffeted by an ocean, because even if you were cut down out here, you wouldn't feel it. It just wouldn't. You just wouldn't feel it happening. There would be no movement that I would expect you would feel. That is the first thing I wanted to say, and the second thing I wanted to say is that what I expect we'll go through today are just one or two things to do with planetary motion. That was one, and the other one was the fact that I told you that I believe the situation with the portions of land, so it'll sit, the parts of land would be this big, and then these bigger bits of land once afloat, and once you got closer to the period of time when Nibiru come through, which means your landmass is going to be usable, your ports are going to be usable. If you're only lifting 6 or 7 inches or less than a foot here, you're going to be fine using the ports. This will be while the lessons take place, because there will be 2.5 years of lessons. It is written on Egyptian parchment, and it actually says 2.5 years. It's 888 days. It's the other reason why we have 800. Okay, this is the image that I showed you last time. I have shown you this a few times, and like I said, this is an indication here where I had 4 days or breaks and 3 months. I'm not so sure that that's right or wrong, or I don't know which one it is. But really, if you catch a boat and you go from the west coast to Hawaii, it takes 4 days. It doesn't take months. So, it's possible and conceivable that these land masses, once they're cut into smaller pieces, it might take 3 months to do all of the world and move them. Because there'll be portions of Earth that will just be lifted up and moved. So, it's difficult to know. But they'll be cut into smaller pieces, which I believe that also indicates closer to the point in time that Nibiru will come flying through the system. It's a little bit difficult on that one, but when you, like I said, a still picture is not always as easy to obtain the information than it is in a video. So I don't go through the video process, or we'd be here all day. I just picked certain parts of the video that indicate certain things. The other thing I wanted to show you relative to that was A friend of mine sent me or uploaded a picture the other day, and I thought, when I saw it, I thought, well, I know exactly what that's meaning, and it's this picture here. This is, I won't tell you where it is, it's probably in the Middle East somewhere, but I've seen multiple references to Australia on structures in the Middle East, and they could be in any of the Middle Eastern countries, but multiple places show representations of Australia. This is another one. I actually think this is probably in South America somewhere, not Middle East. But why I immediately knew what it meant is, to me, it was depicting exactly where these three impacts were going to take place. This is the Northern Territory, South Australia, West Australia border here. That's exactly what that represents. It's telling us right here, we can see 1, 2, 3. We may be in for more comets than just the 1 or 3 that I said, but these are impacting at exactly the same time. So in other words, they are using this to drive the mass of Earth underneath the continents once they're afloat and adrift and everything's in the right place, so that, and high enough not to be struck by anything lower down, like ridges and the mid-Atlantic ridge and all such things, but they are still very deep. But I would expect, like this stage, they'll all be in a position where they're not going to be harmed, and these impacts would appear to be telling us they're going to move this part of Australia is where they are going to hit. Okay, so, and we might see here, like I said, we know that there's a cut got to go up in the middle of Western Australia, and it also goes back over to the top of the Cape. So I would believe that that's telling us they all land in what land masses in Australia are not moved and are left attached to the Earth's crust. One thing I wanted to show you was this rock again, and I wanted to start off here before I went through the process of telling you why I've labelled this video as such. And I said to you in the video that I have in actual fact seen this shape of the Great Australian Bight and Port Pirie and Port Augusta before. It's a common thing just to have found this on a rock. It's not one, it's the very first image I ever saw and realised it was Australia. It was in actual fact at microscopic level. This is not microscopic, it's a rock. That, strangely enough, that image that I showed you of the man spiralling into space is actually this rock, but you cannot actually hold this rock or sit it flat like that to get that image. You actually have to hold this and balance it with one hand whilst you're moving the light with the other, having already started the movie or video aspect of the microscopic work. So I'm holding it like this under the microscope at an angle and moving the light like this to obtain that image where you see the man going up into space. And that's why I'm saying to you, I know without doubt even the rock has to be held at an angle for that to happen. You cannot sit it like this. So it is without doubt those people would be gone before the Earth begins to go through these processes by the people that come back here. And just one further matter before we move along. I have had people, and I mentioned this in a video a few weeks back, and I actually intended to put this back in a video that I put up 2 days ago, which was the 21-hour day, because at the end of that I talked about rock technologies, or the technologies that are shown to be used on the rock, and I did talk about pixelation and all such things, and I have had people suggest to me that this is a natural occurrence, that just from shapes or whatever. I can assure you it is absolutely not that. It is designed to do as it is. It is as it is to show a history of mankind written on the river rocks in their billions. And this is probably the most convincing image that I've taken off a rock that would show so. I'm going to zoom into this portion here so you can see that there is a man here. And in the hope that I can see this clearly, when I have that on my laptop, this comes out extremely clearly as that pixelated type image, this one here. like so. I know on this screen it doesn't come out quite as well, but you can see that the figure itself here that's pointing is a man standing here with his arm out. Okay, and what he's doing is he's drawing your attention and saying, well, look over there. I've covered that manner in which they say, go and look over there, in another video I uploaded. To be honest, I can't remember what the name of it was, but there is a video I have uploaded and where I've shown that many times. When we come down to this corner of the picture, we see the manner in which the rocks are delivered. There's these two blokes sitting in this UFO here going along, and there's all these little rocks dropping out into what may be a river. Certainly in another video or another photo I have, this looks like a mothership, and it's lasering the mountain edges and doing all sorts of weird and wonderful things. I can assure you the people that come here and their skills are far beyond our imagination, but I did just want to put that in there at this present point. The other image that I wanted to discuss is from last week's video as well, 21-hour day, and that is this image. Now, I did try and show you this clearly. I've chosen to use the darker picture here, but I will do an insert of this one right now so you can see how clearly this right angle here is here. You don't see it very clearly in this one, but there is an actual fact a red ball here, a ball shape with a bit of a tail. I believe this is Nibiru, an indication or a depiction of Nibiru. I'll insert that image as well, at least the best I can show it to you, so that you can see that that's what it looks like. So I would expect that what we're seeing here with this right angle, that this picture has a meaning as well. And what I wanted to discuss, I only discussed the technologies required to make this image here last week. So I'm going to insert a brighter one now so you can see it, and a bright version. I brighten them up sometimes to put them on my cups, which is like so, to make sure that they're very visible on a cup. So that's why some of them I will put up a little bit darker, a little bit brighter. But I wanted to talk to you about what this actually meant. When we consider what we're seeing here in this right angle, what I want to talk to you about is that it's 90 degrees, but if it's talking about a rotation of Earth around the Sun, it's talking about 3 months. Okay, that's one of its meanings, and it's saying here that the Earth has to be straightened for 3 months prior to Nibiru, or that it takes 3 months for the Earth to straighten once the land masses are moved, or lifted at least. So what I'm saying is we're getting a 3 month time there. On the other hand, we could be looking at, in respect the Earth's motion here, as to this side of the picture. In other words, this is a woman here. It becomes far more clear in a brighter version. I'll install it again here. The woman here is looking down. She's sad. You can see her face like this. She is a white woman. I don't mean to sound racist, but this is what our lessons are. The lessons are the Caucasian races north of the Mediterranean cannot breed once the Earth is stood straight. She looks this way because she can't even live on the top half of the cycle. We are told the Earth, from the time that it was struck with these impacts, causing it to move, or the plane of rotation to shift, that the plane of rotation of Earth around the Sun has shifted like so, 180 degrees. So in what we're seeing here is she can breed and have children with only the latter portion of this 3,000 years, from about 2,400 years. The certainly top part here is unlivable. I can't see anybody living here, certainly no civilizations, and said to you that is why we're seeing that situation of civilization disappear. There's a second coming, because there was a first one, and the first one's before it gets to that point, they get the people and take them and relocate them. In this case, they relocated them off the planet, but out of the solar system, so that when we go through this portion, we are the only ones in the solar system here. And it's on this half of that 6,000 years that it takes for the Earth to change its plane of rotation 180 degrees, which changes the motion of Earth going clockwise around the Sun to anti-clockwise, which is the process and the reason why it's done. So she is sad for that reason, that she cannot breathe. That is why she's so glum. She also knows that when the earth stands like this, that is the case. In our case, because I've told you about how the stars function, our stars function changed from, if we look at this inserted image here of a star array, and I said to you that we are told in Nibiru's path that we have moved from what was a star A, B or C to a star 1 or 2. The star hasn't moved, the function the star has within the array has moved. So I would see in our fact now we will be in actual fact cohabitating other planets within the very solar system we're in. That is what I fully expect will happen, and there will be more planets made livable on the ring of rotation of Mars. I won't go too much more into that, but I did want to explain what that actually meant. And I believe that we're getting confirmation here of a 3-month period for Earth to stand straight. One thing I would like to raise, I had said to you in the image that showed the landmass afloat, the distance in time for each of the impacts, and I was not sure. I actually believe we're shown both there with our right angle and in this inserted image here, which is a cross-section of the pyramid. We are shown 2 times outside of the 33 minutes. We are shown 15 minutes and 5 minutes. And I actually believe if we look at that there, we're looking, if we're talking about minutes in an hour, we're talking 15 minutes, because we're talking that much of a clock face. So in actual fact the 15 minutes there would be exactly reflective of the pyramid cross-section itself, 5 and 15, 5 minutes apart for each of those 3 impacts. And now we'll get on with the subject matter of the video name. I wanted to start with this image, which is once again microscopic. I showed you the rock that showed us the Great Australian Bight, and I said in my last video that it is seen on multiple rocks. This is at microscopic level. I'm an Australian, so with European ancestry, so I am in the same shoes as the rest of us here that are from, above the Mediterranean. And I recognise this coast. I actually used to live in South Australia, and I recognise this as the Great Australian Bight in Port Pirie and Port Augusta right here, and I thought, wow, that's got part of Australia there. And there was a little man standing here. Over here there is a planetary body. It's not quite as clear in this blow up like this, but it's very clear on a laptop. And I saw this line coming in here with these lines bouncing off here. This line here seems to bounce across like this. And it's in actual fact this rock that led me to find this comet impact, which is the one that's tracked from the central wall in Sacsayhuaman. Those walls in Sacsayhuaman in Peru are built there to tell us the trajectory of the comets that came to tilt the Earth's axis. That's exactly the purpose of those walls. The middle one is longer. It's telling us that it actually landed first, which is why it's there. But I wanted to just come here to let you know that this rock image is what led me to that comet. It wasn't that I found a comet in Western Australia and thought I would come back here and mark a rock or do whatever. I put videos up where I put a fine line marker. This is a really, really fine line marker in here, and it's half the size of this picture. It's about this thick, a fine line marker. You cannot make these. I could, I suppose, with something, but beyond me to even bother worrying about it. I'm telling you that this coastline here is what led me to believe there was something here I had to find, and I already knew about the tilting of Earth's axis. This assured me Nibiru existed, and so that's how I went about finding it. It was this rock that told me, and that's the important fact that I want you to understand. It was this rock that told me where that comet was, and that's how I found it. And one more image from the very same rock, which is on the top of the rock. This was not taken with a microscope, it's actually taken with a SLR camera that I zoomed in, and then I had to, cut and snip and move. So our degradation of our image here is a little degraded. But we are seeing the west coast of Western Australia here and round to the Great Australian Bight here again. But once again, the comet that I just showed you sits right there in the middle of Western Australia. These four here, if we look at this image now, is one of the very first images I ever took when I'm still using a normal microscope light. So it was before I went away on my holiday and made the discovery that these images are visible using an external light source. The four that you see written at the bottom of South America, when we come back to this image now, are in actual fact these four here. And if you open up Google Earth and turn a switch on, it'll show you the deepest oceans. The four deepest parts of the ocean above the continent of Australia are exactly in that location. I've covered that before in a video too, but I just wanted to show you that the comet itself is once again here. It was this rock that told me where that comet was. Now the reason I wanted to show you that process, in other words, that there are things that have been written on the rocks that have helped me find things that are on Earth that I didn't know were there. I've never heard about an impact that size, it's 16 kilometres wide in the central West Australia, and I've never learnt that through any of the, there's a lot of things I've learned from rocks that I've never seen on any video. I see a lot of people telling a whole lot of stories. Amazingly, quite a few of them seem to have English accents. But we won't get into that. Like I said, my ancestry is from England anyway, so be it. I wanted to show you this because what I saw, and I know once again it's difficult to get one still photo from a video that I'm recording at microscopic level that tells a story, but this was about the best I could get it to see both sides of the story. I saw this, not so much clearly in this portion, that this was a sunken ship. It was on the bottom of the ocean. Over here you get highlighters when you're making a video of these sails here. They are the Opera House sails. It was telling me that there was a sunken boat, and I lived in Sydney, so to get that view of the Opera House where the sails are pointing that direction, you have to be west of the Opera House. And there isn't enough room on the other side of the bridge because it's actually the circular quay. So you've got nowhere there really to put a big boat like this, and they would know such a thing. So I then realised that what they're talking about is this is west of the bridge. And I thought I might go and have a look and see what I can find. So I did go and have a look. There is a dive site that had a, what's in Sydney Harbour, sonar of the bottom of Sydney Harbour. And we have gone up the harbour, past the bridge, and we've gotten to, I've got Waverton Point written here, but it isn't Waverton Point, it's actually Corings Point in Waverton, and it's off what is an island over this side called Goat Island. Actually, I think Goat Island is more down in this portion here. Strange name, Goat Island. Not when you have a bunch of Satanists running our world. But lo and behold, what do we see? One boat and another boat here. This one here is on the shallows, on the bank. This one here is in the deepest part. Why? Because when they let Nuked off, it's in the bottom of it, it was supposed to create a tsunami and destroy a greater part of Sydney. And I will just say at this point, it isn't just Sydney Harbour that was to be destroyed. It was London, it was Paris and New York. And I will show you a couple of other images and talk of the destruction we are shown on the rocks. And like I said, it was difficult for me to come to an understanding was why I was seeing the destruction when in reality they've told me and helped me with the rocks and the pyramids and all such things how the earth is managed. In other words, the straightening of the axis, the speeding of the globe, the movement through space and the thrust upwards, all of those movements, how they are managed. Why are you going to show me how to manage it all without killing people, and yet show me image of destruction? And this is when I realised what I was being told. We're being told that there was nuclear weapons in this boat that were going to blow up here, blow up those other 3 cities that I just mentioned, and kill millions of people, and it would be blamed on China. And you could say, okay, well that's just one rock. No, it's not. It's actually on. Now I've shown you this rock before. It's the rock that has just produced the greater majority of those images that I've just shown you of Australia. The top of this is where the whole continent of Australia is, where the 4 impacts are visible. It's odd that in this position we see 3 dots here of light and a nice big slash down here. But this is some time ago, and this is indicating to me that what we're seeing happen here is not what we're seeing happen here. So in other words, this is part of their process, and this is somebody else's part of the process. Now, I wanted to show you that. I now have this zoomed in a little, and I want you to be aware that what we're seeing here is little tiny waves down here, but absolutely huge waves up here. And understanding what we're seeing. Now I want to show you the image that I generated through putting this through the light, and I said that they're indicating us they cut closer to the land, which is not wrong, but like I said, a change of light can lead us to a whole different story. This is the image that I showed you when I put it under the microscope, that portion of the rock, and moved the light source around using external light. I got this image, which is a little boat going across smaller waves. And I said that it proved that we're not cutting that far out to sea, we're cutting close to the coast here, not very far out off the oceans. That's why I say to you, I think the lift initially is only going to be a foot or so, if that. But I wanted to show you that because be aware that these are the little waves here, or the ocean waves, so those waves that are reflected above this, because that is the portion of the rock we're talking about. We're talking about that larger portion here. There's something else making huge waves here. So I thought, I'm going to go and put the video on that image come from, this one, and see if I can see an indication as to what I just was told from that other rock. And lo and behold, that's exactly what happened. And this is another part of another rock. It is very, very, very obvious what you're looking at is the very same thing. We have a boat here in the bottom of the harbour and another boat on the side. It's got both boats in it again. This one's on the shallow, laning on the edge of the water, just as we saw in the sonar. This one here sits down at the bottom. Here we have a person, by every stretch of my imagination, looks like a person's face. But I believe that what we're seeing here, that these explosions were going to be blamed on Asia, and there would have been a nuclear war between China and the people we call our allies. I'm not kidding. Allies. I tell you what, that was an intention, knowledge of people that live here. Now before I move on to the other image, I'm going to just go back over some of these ones that I showed you, show us devastation. This is one that I believe depicts Paris. We have a tower fallen over, but we have a steamroller in this crystal. So this crystal has a tower fallen over, this one has a steamroller. The steamroller was invented in France, so we can safely assume that the tower is in actual fact representing Paris. It too was to be nuked. This image here is New York. We have a man here with a hat, with a set of overalls on it, a sewer outlet, with the Statue of Liberty in the background resting on a human skull. Just here. This is almost the same place on the rock as the New York image that I just showed you. It's just the light variation showed us up here, and I thought this was Sydney Harbour Bridge because we saw the Cahill Expressway. You've got to go through underneath and do a bit of a loop to get back up onto the bridge to go to North Sydney. Right here, Kirribilli House. It's right where the Prime Minister lives, right here. I used to think that there was an explosion here, but in reality, I think it's maybe saying that this bloke here knows about what was going to happen over here. And like I said, the bridge is chopped in half or blown apart here. Certainly looked like that to me. There is do have images of London that I saw, and I know it was London because there was a real big Ferris wheel, but honestly it was quite some months back and I can't remember what video it was in, and I just thought, oh well, that's just another destroyed city. But like I said, it's not until you get it all together and then you get led somewhere, and like I said, get led by a rock to tell me to go and look in the Sydney Harbour and find 2 boats and then have 3 rocks that have exactly the same boat there. And I say 3, I've only showed you 2. I'm going to show you a video and I will let it play, but what I'm going to do is I will show you initially the start of it and then I'll say goodbye and let it play out without looking at the TV, because the degradation of the imagery is not fair on you and nor is it fair on me, and I already, to be honest, made this video last night and was unhappy with that. So I wanted to come back, just if I could, to 1 or 2 of these other images here. And I wanted to come back to this image. I'll just zoom in just a bit there. That was the boat image, but like I said, you start to see another boat up here in this portion, once again up in the shadow portion on its side, while this one's down the bottom. But in between here, you've got a nice little shiny little ball there and a nice little shiny little ball over here. I will insert them so they become a little bit clearer. Like I said, when you look at them photographed, certainly we're going to lose some degradation. And I wanted to show that to you, and there's also one other one I wanted to show you. It's the same. This will show you the difference between the angle, you know, like the light angle. And what I'm suggesting there is what you'll see is the reason I've got UFOs in this is they've taken the bombs away. And if I was in the Army, Air Force or Navy in Australia and had any balls, I'd be down here diving. You'll find that part of the bow of the boat is missing. You'll also see a slight question mark there with a dot right there saying question it. So get down there, lads, go and have a look at that boat, and you will find the technology used to sever that part of it is technologies we have not got, especially underwater. It will be as clean as a whistle, both sides, and taken away. That is what's happened there. They have been removed, and a nuclear war has been averted by the people that are coming here to take the Satanist Masons away from this planet. This image is the full screenshot of the images that I've been showing you of the boats. And like I said, you can see more happily that other boat is in this portion here. The big boat is here. And down here we have a little black man standing on a rock. In the last month there's been quite a bit happen in the political scene in Australia. I've written via email the former Premier Gladys Berejiklian. I've also written via email the Deputy Premier John Barilaro. Prime Minister of Australia has been being kept up to date via his MyGov service account and his email. I have repetitious responses from him, only responses from his automated office email server, certainly not from him. I haven't heard a word. Like I said, we have a little bloke down here standing on a rock. We're seeing the boat here. We're seeing in the foreground here the result of a tsunami going across this mountain ridge here, which would have been the case. But we do have a little man here, a black figure, standing on a rock, observing. In other words, he got out of the way. I can assure you that both the Prime Minister and his counterpart from Queensland, a man I loathe, the Defence Minister Peter Dutton, were in America very, very recently, and once they got over there, they start talking about, you know, nuclear submarines, or are they actually referring to submerged nukes? A very good question. I would like to know where the other two Premier and Deputy Premier were on the weekend. Now this is the other rock, and it's a video that I've taken with my microscope. And like I said, I know it's difficult to get a really, really good quality on the screen here whilst I'm using my camera to take a picture of this, and it's not as good as the quality you're going to see first up on this. So I'm going to put this in at the end of the video. I'm going to kick it off because I want to just point out a few things as I finish up, okay? And I'll point out where to look in the video once it starts, okay? So I'll put it in full screen mode and say, okay, well initially when I start doing this, I start seeing this as a harbour here, and there are boats. And this is the way they make the water look deeper. It's really quite an amazing thing. They like put an opaque surface like this over something like that, and you can realise that that's actually what you're looking at. And you do see boats along here on this point here, and boats out on the water here. But more importantly, you end up understanding you're into the water because a boat becomes extremely visible in this portion here. But the boat is not a modern day tanker or whatever. It's actually a, well, you know, like a rowboat with multiple seats across it. I'll just let this play for a bit. It's not only like that because it changes to a human eye at some point, and you'll also see on these portions here. This is where initially it looks like a bit of a boat, but then it turns into tsunami waves going across what was your port, and the waves are built up here. And you can see these big waves coming in here over the port. But it does turn into a very, very clear boat. At about 4 minutes, it turns into an eye. You know, so like I said, it's moving the rock. I'll tell you there, you can see the ribs of the boat there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let that play for a bit while I just finish up. And like I said, you'll see faces here. You'll even see very clearly an Aboriginal person come into this portion here. There will be ghostly faces here. Down in this bottom portion towards the end of the video, you will see buildings and structures that become extremely clear into this portion here. You'll see here's where it starts to turn into tidal waves or tsunamis going across what was the port image, because this initially looks like a port along here with boats parked near the edge, and you can see what they've implied, the very same thing. Huge tsunamis driven by the tsunamis that have been driven by this atomic explosion which has been in the harbour. So, like I said, you'll see faces come out in this portion here, faces here, and down here will be where your city goes. So what I'll do is I'm going to put this video in at the end so you can watch the whole lot, and you have the beauty then of being in so high quality. You can just pause it like this, you know, start it again or pause it and stop, and you'll see that that is the best way to be able to see the imagery that they intend for you to see. I did say I will go across here for just a minute to get to 4 minutes and zoom through here a bit, because I want to show you where it does actually turn into, see that looks a little bit more like the wave portion here, where you see the waves coming at what was the port, and you see this at certain points in time. You see this guy here, his face comes out and he's just getting burnt and fried, because you can see, just like you see in the replays you see of atomic weapon tests, the city has just been, like, you know how you get that first initial thrust of the sonic wave that hits you. I wanted to come to 4 minutes because I'll show you where this turns into an eye here, and it turns into a little eye looking at you, which is generally how they say, look at what I'm doing, come and look at what you're seeing. you know, and that is in actual fact pretty obvious in that portion there, that turns into an eye. This port here that was originally a boat. It's the way they do this is absolutely mind-blowing. The technologies we are seeing to manufacture this is absolutely amazing. But now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you that there's portions there where you get what looks like an eye looking directly at you. And we can say that what's happened is these nuclear weapons that were in that boat in the harbour are gone, and I would expect, like I said, if anybody in the Army, Navy or Air Force give a rat's backside about the people of the country they are supposed to protect, they should be down there at that boat site looking at it. Listen, I think I'll finish up there today with my words at least, and I will insert this entire video for you to have a look at now. I will say one thing before I go. The effort that they put in and the years that I have persisted, you know, and it falling on deaf ears. I've had the manipulation of my views. I've had a lot of things go down. Listen, and I've said the only thing is truth. You know, I sit there and I wonder in my own head sometimes, why the hell do you give these people so long? Why don't you just get rid of them? In reality, they're not fighting for your lives, they're fighting for your souls, and they know from where you go from here, well then your souls have got to be redeemed in a world far, far, far worse. So in other words, a likelihood of redemption. And you will be living a natural life, a very, very, very long one, thousands of years. You will be saved within the last second of your breath and go through the process time and time and time and time again. The redemption of your soul is almost undoable. That is why they persist for so long. That's exactly why. It's why I persist for so long, because unfortunately, I guess I have people in that realm far closer to me than I ever realised. But I have had some lessons myself going through this that were far beyond worrying about whether the earth tilts this way, that way, or goes around left, right and centre. I'm merely saying that I've had some personal lessons taught me during the whole process. Listen, I'm going to finish up there today, and I will say to you, thank you very much. This is Brian Whitten and ETR, but stay on and watch this video here in the best quality I can give it to you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.